What's going on, everybody? I am finally back after probably about a month and a half, 2 months worth of not making these. I just really didn't have time in the day, and then by the time nighttime came around, I was dead. And as in typical fashion, you miss one day during a Trump administration, and you've missed probably about 20 stories, right? So on most days. But yeah, no, I had to finish fixing up that truck. It wound up stalling here in the garage. We ended up having to put in a new gas tank. I did that with the help of a friend of mine. The downspout to it, the filler hose or whatever you want to call it, we had to replace that too. That was all rotted out because of the rust patch on the side, which I also bondoed and fixed really good. Does it look perfect? No, that wasn't what I was going for. I was just trying to keep rain from coming in the foot-long wide hole. And then after that, other stuff that I did on it and all that, it was time to start cleaning up the yard, getting the gardens ready for vegetables and flowers and doing all that, just cleaning up from winter. If you live in a snowy state, you understand things blow out of the car, stuff blows across the ground that you've had stored, didn't hold, all that good stuff. Got that done, and there's only a handful of things left that I got to get done. Some of which will probably be during, the summer, and that's why I am now out here. Last night was the last 30-degree night. I felt comfortable bringing my desktop computer out here finally, so I can do these shows or whatever a little bit easier than from my room. If my wife's asleep, she works midnight, stuff like that. I can do these shows in between doing things, working in the garden and things like that. So honestly, it's finally time. I'm actually glad to be back. I'm glad that you are watching with me. I want to get to the story now. Check this out. So I'm sure you've all heard about these flock cams. Now, you've probably heard quite a bit about these flock cams. There's some truth to it, and there is some disinformation to it on some level. With these flock cams, like one of the things that aren't true, Palantir is not, they don't own Flock. Flock is its own company. They were a startup. Venture capitalists invested in it. So that's what happened. Peter Thiel or whatever of Palantir, he invested in it. So did a whole bunch of other people. It wasn't just him on it by any stretch of the imagination, but he's the one that they hyper focus on. Then obviously law enforcement uses it, but they also use servers that Palantir provides law enforcement, or that law enforcement has access to, that they keep all kinds of things for law enforcement on, background check, criminal information, things like that, fingerprint, just all kinds of stuff. But the cameras also run on these servers, this network for Palantir. So that's the only connection there. They don't own it. They don't run it. It's not, you know what I mean? As far as like business operations or anything like that, that's a complete myth. Having said all that, they have done some good things with these cameras. Do I like it? No, but I don't live in the big city. You vote blue, you get a surveillance state. That it is what it is. I can't believe anybody's even surprised that the same people who were telling you that you should be arrested for going out to the beach by yourself because somebody was sneezing would do something like this to you. Elections have consequences. You get what you vote for. They want to cut back on police because, somebody OD'd on fentanyl. They're going to use something in its place, and it seems like these are going to be that. Good things have happened with them. We've actually utilized them in places to find illegals who were criminals, and other criminals, obviously, through the facial recognition. And bad things have happened. There was a recent story about a woman who she was driving. Sorry, that started playing for no reason. She started driving, and the next thing you know, she goes past one of these flock cameras. Her phone's on her lap, face down. Both hands are on the wheel. This is according to her. We'll see. I'm sure she's going to take it to court. And she gets a ticket for having a phone on her person while driving. But she wasn't using it at all. Now, I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens there. I mean, it's possible another camera picked her up holding the camera or holding the phone And then another camera took a picture of her when it was in her lap, and they just saw the combination of evidence, and they're like, yeah, she was on her phone and didn't see the other camera. I don't know. We'll find out eventually. My point is that they can be used for good and bad, right? So we'll see what happens there. But this right here, this is the bad, okay? So this is coming from Mr. Guns and Gear over there on X. He says, cop uses flock cameras and software to illegally track his mistress, his wife, his mistress's boyfriend, etc. I don't know why he would be tracking his wife unless she was cheating on them and on him. And then at that point, so was his mistress, which says a lot about dude there. But anyway, he also points out, we don't got to read it all because it's going to get covered in this, other than he eventually pled to misdemeanors, not felonies, he asks. Right here, and got 3 years of informal probation. And then he says, to see if you or your loved ones are being tracked, you can check haveibeenflocked.com. That site can only track one type of search, and the state can search the system in many, many different ways that aren't accessible without contract, so it's incomplete. So let's take a listen to what this fool did.
Is caught using police cameras to spy on his mistress.
Mike Rogers, there were already privacy concerns about these cameras, and then this happens.
And, you know, this guy was accused of spying on his mistress's new lovers, as well as his current wife, all happening in the city of Costa Mesa. We'll show you some video here of the flock system cameras that we are talking about. The flock cameras have been wildly controversial, especially recently when there was a data issue that came to light. But the Orange County DA's office says this former Costa Mesa police officer not only used these flock cameras to track his mistress, her new boyfriends, as well as his current wife, but also used confidential law enforcement systems to be able to run people a number of times that had nothing to do with his work as a law enforcement officer. They also allege that he contacted his mistress thousands of times via social media, text, and phone calls, as many as 100 times in one day. Just for one example here, Robert J. Josette, 35 years old, pleaded guilty to 3 misdemeanor counts as related to all of this. He's been ordered for a 52-week domestic violence program, as well as 3 years of informal probation. Now, they allege that he repeatedly was sending messages to her, texting her, calling her through social media and the phone, sometimes as many as 58 times a day. He then began calling her new boyfriend and then would allegedly use these systems to try to track them down, and then in some cases go meet them at those locations. The Orange County DA says even after he was suspended from Costa Mesa PD, he still used the flock camera system to track his mistress. All of this now, he's a former police officer and now has pleaded guilty to these 3 misdemeanor counts related to it.
Where did he find the time, Mike? Incredible.
When he was suspended, he had some more time.
Indeed. Okay, Mike.
All right, so there you have it. I mean, it's just like with the flock cameras. They can be used for good. They can be used for bad. Just like cops are generally good and cops can also be bad. You know what I mean? That's why, I always say I don't back the blue 100% there. I don't do that. I know a lot of people say back the blue, but there's a lot of corruption in that particular aspect of things, more than I would like. But I also understand the fact that we do indeed need law enforcement officers. So do I respect them? Yes. Am I all this, back the blue stuff? No, that's just not me. It is what it is. So there you have it. I mean, and then there's other stories you can find where there's actually just people like you or I who have been online and found access into the flock system and been able to just look at public cams that they have out there, which is an issue. And just like any newer technology, they're going to have to start fixing this stuff because I smell lawsuits coming. If I were any of these people that he was stalking, and also it said he had like a battery charges or a spousal abuse or something like that. I can't remember what exactly it was. But he obviously was not a great dude, obviously. And I don't know if they just gave him those charges because he was stalking and doing that, and they just said, well, we'll throw those at him too. Or if he was actually smacking these women around. Or maybe the boyfriend, who knows, it's California. Anyway, so long story short, they're going to have to start fixing this, because if I was these people, I would probably sue. Just like the story about that girl, driving, phone on the lap, hands on the wheel, gets a ticket. If that turns out to where she got a ticket for only that, and they didn't pick her up on any other cameras where she was on her phone, right? she should also sue. I think the only way to push for better technology that could be useful is to force them to improve it, because these companies are not going to improve it if it's just like seen as working. There's no resistance to it. Oh yeah, it screws up once in a while, but nobody ever fights back type thing. No, you need to sue the company. And that'll force the company to start making the upgrades and doing the things that they need to do to prevent this from happening. There is absolutely no reason why this startup company that has now been pushed into blue cities, you get what you vote for, there's no reason that they should be getting, not even hacked into, just into by the general public or by officers that are using them. Right? Okay, so I get he could have gotten away with that while he was on duty or whatever, because he's a cop. He has access to it. But when he was on suspension, there should have been some kind of cutoff for that. Now, that's more a police department issue. But, I mean, they're using AI. There's got to be a way to tell, using AI, if somebody's abusing the system, right? I'm just saying. Anyway, guys, that's what I got for you on that. Again, he brought up that website, haveibeenflocked.com. There are other sites. Deflockme.com, I think, is another one he didn't mention, which helps you take routes where there are no flock cameras, supposedly. Like I said, I don't have to worry about that. I'm in a small town. They don't have any cameras here, to my knowledge. I've not seen one. So, yeah. But if you live in the big city, you might want to check into those websites. Anyway, guys, till next time, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.